Hey everybody, welcome back. We had a couple of comments over the last few weeks and months about getting proper audio levels for your vocals. So the question had arose that if we make a recording and it's a whisper, how to fix it. So we're going to go through how to get some levels that are usable in this one, and then we'll go back to mixing and working on that other track in the future. But for now, I'd like to try to help out as best as I can. So we're just going to do some troubleshooting and maybe help out some people in this one. So the question had been given, when recording audio, that it's almost a whisper and they don't know how to bring it up. So we're going to go ahead and try a couple of things and see if we can't help some people out. So I'm going to go ahead and record a bit of audio and try to mimic what they're getting. So here we go. I'm just going to hit record on this one little Vox track. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. Okay, so hopefully that gives a decent depiction of what they're looking at, which they had mentioned that it was a quiet recording, that the line was barely moving, and they were having to stretch the volume to get it up. Now that is not necessarily the preferred way. I guess you can do it that way if needed, but it's much better to get a decent gain level going into the recording and then working with it from there, than stretching it and bringing it up. So let's hear what it sounds like now. 1 2, check 1 2. Okay, and that is obviously not a usable thing unless you're stretching the gain out like that. There is a gain envelope here that you can raise it up, but let's try to get it at a base level through your mix console. So we're going to click the mix console, and there is a little arrow to the left that has a line in front of it, and we're going to click that, and that's going to pop up with the options that you have on your interface, which mine are input 1 and 2 together, input 1 and input 2, which are separated into a left and a right. Right now it's a mono track, so it's showing as mono. So we're going to make sure that on our interface, we're getting enough gain to the microphone to get our level. And where I usually record at is somewhere in between -6 and -12. I'm sure there are going to be so many opinions on how to record and what levels you should be attaining, but that's where I record at, is somewhere in between -6 and -12. So what we're going to do is right now, while this is on, I'm going to go to my microphone and speak into it, and I'm going to raise the gain level of my microphone on my interface until it's reaching a point that I'm happy with. So let's go ahead and do that. Check 1 2, 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 check 1 2. Okay, so as you can see, we're getting a better level now from the microphone. I have two separate microphones in front of me, which is why it quiets down when I'm talking into my main microphone versus the one that's connected to Studio One right now. If I get close to it, check 1 2, it does get louder. So let's go ahead and repeat our little experiment with the gain level increased. Shut off the MIDI and that there too. So we'll duplicate the track, and we will turn that one on to the record session. And let's hit record again and see if we can get a better volume with just that one little fix. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. And yes, as you can see, the volume on this one is much better. There is no clipping, and that to me would be a very usable track. So let's hear it. Check 1 2, check 1 2. Versus, mute that and unmute that. Check 1 2, check 1 2. Now, if you are still having an issue, if you are still getting a line like this, and you've adjusted your gain to the proper level, the next thing I would like to do is sometimes it's the simplest thing. Like, for example, is your 48 volt phantom power button on your interface on? If you are using a condenser microphone, typically they need, well, I mean, I guess all the time, they need more power than a regular dynamic microphone. So in that case, you would turn on your phantom power, and that gives it the boost, and then you'll start getting gain levels that are usable, usually. If you're using a dynamic microphone, however, you should not have your 48 volt phantom power on. Dynamic microphones do not need the 48 volt. However, there are some microphones, the SM7B, for example, typically requires a lot more gain than normal, but your phantom power button isn't going to help that. You would need something like a cloud lifter, or maybe even trying a different microphone until you could get a interface that does boost up enough. So let's say you've tried both of those things and you're still getting a quiet mix. Well, there are a couple of rather less desirable options to be able to work with it, but it could still be possible. Let's say you are using the SM7B and your interface just isn't giving it enough power. There is a secondary gain knob in this window for your inputs that you can manually raise up, and it will raise the level for you. And it practically does the same thing, but as you can see, I mean, it did clip a little bit there. You could probably adjust it a little bit better. So that is an option, but I'd kind of almost not use that option ever. Actually, I never use that option. I always just try to get it from the interface. Get it best from the source, right? And then, of course, yes, you do have the option of this is your gain envelope, which pretty much does the same thing as this knob. I think it's exactly, it's just on the track and not on the input that you raise the volume from there. Now, again, they aren't necessarily desirable because you're not solving the issue of getting enough gain for a gain-hungry microphone. It's really just kind of like band-aiding it, and you don't want to band-aid things all the way. You really want to fix the problem at the source. So trying to do it the right way and having a proper gain level on your interface, making sure that your phantom power is on, making sure your cables are good, making sure your microphone is in decent shape. They are all going to help you. If you click Studio One at the top, this is on Windows, so that's my button. And then Options. It will bring down a drop down for your interface settings. If nothing else is working, please ensure that your interface is the interface that is running through Studio One. Like I said, sometimes it's a simple problem that you just didn't think about or hadn't really put much thought into, and that's okay. But just make sure that your audio device in Studio One is the one you are recording with. So just to go back and double check everything, we are going to make sure that our level is good here by adjusting the gain on our interface. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. It looks pretty good to me. It's in between 6 and 12 for the most part. We're going to make sure our phantom power is on if it is a condenser microphone, which mine is a condenser microphone, so my phantom power is connected. My cables are working just fine. My microphone looks to be working just fine. And also my Z button is on, so that I can record without much latency. And then when we record, we will duplicate this track. We should get recording every single time the same result of a decent take. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check, check. And see, it is again a very good recording level. I believe is a good recording level. That's very usable, Very quick, short, sweet. Hopefully that helps you. Please like, share, subscribe. We appreciate everybody who has been paying attention to the channel and asking questions. I love helping out in any way I can, and this has really been a great opportunity for me, so I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. And if you have any more questions, just leave them in the comments. There is kind of a schedule also, so it may have to wait sometimes, but I will get to you as quickly as possible and working around that schedule, because there's a couple of things, really cool things I'd like to show you guys in Studio One and mixing and recording. And yeah, so keep an eye out for most of that, and I will see you all next week.